Good afternoon. Welcome to GDIC's webinar for the SEWP VI Draft RFP. My name is Cal, and I'm your artificial intelligence host today. With me is Ab Van, VP for Capture at GDIC and a subject matter expert on government contracting. Please note that this webinar will take approximately 1 hour. Before starting, there are a few housekeeping notes I would like to mention. First, this webinar is being recorded and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Second, we will hold a Q&A session at the end. You can send your questions during the webinar by the chat system to the right of your window and Ab will address them at the end. Third, you can download this presentation by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel on your window. We highly recommend you download the slide deck so that you can always refer back to it. So let's see what this webinar covers. We will first have a quick glimpse on the history of the SEWP program and specifically the current ongoing SEWP V. Then we will provide some general information about SEWP VI and what are its categories. Then we will dive into the proposal requirements and what is needed for each volume in the proposal. Next we will discuss the selection process and the criteria for it. Lastly, and before we go into the Q&A session, we will touch on some win themes and what your strategy to win should be. We have a lot to cover and hope that we can have enough time for the Q&A, but we will of course answer all remaining questions by email. As a whole, the message we want to convey to you in this webinar is that there are a number of moving parts in this RFP submission and you need to make sure that you have them all before diving into the full proposal preparations. Ab will discuss these in detail. So, with that, I will now hand over the control to Ab to start the webinar. Ab, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for participating in our webinar. My name is Ab Van. I'm a VP for Capture at GDI Consulting. We have a lot to cover, so I will be going over everything perhaps too quickly. So, as Cal mentioned, you should try to download the presentation slides so you can actually refer back to them. So with that, let's start. So SEWP V and the SEWP program as a whole. So if you look at the SEWP history, this is SEWP VI that we're discussing. So SEWP I started in February 1993 for 4 years until 97. It started with $800 million budget. Then we went to SEWP II from 96 to 2001 with $1.8 billion. You can see that the budget has been increasing. SEWP III, $4 billion, SEWP IV, $17 billion, SEWP V, the previous and ongoing project, $30 billion, and we'll see that it has actually gone over it, way over it. And you can see that they had different ways of actually competing. For example, for SEWP V, there was one small business set aside for STV OSP companies, one set aside for hub zones, and 2 full and open competitions. So there are different ways of actually, presenting the way that they were doing it. So we'll go into details of this specifically for SEWP VI, but I wanted to give you an idea of how it's working. Now, in terms of the SEWP, actually 147 contract holders are currently performing under SEWP V, with approximately a little bit more than 100 small businesses included in those. 9,000 OEM providers. The annual obligated value is the average is $10.2 billion during the past few years, with $45 billion, and I've heard $62 billion with some of the contracts that have not been actually entered into the government's database due to security reasons or others. Either way, $45 or $62 billion obligated to date, and remember it was $30 billion initially their expectation. And almost all government agencies are using this. So it does mention here that it's based by NASA, but NASA is just the PMO, the Program Management Office. SEWP is a GWAC, so it's a government-wide acquisition contract. So all the agencies are using it, and we'll see that it's a very healthy program. It's increasing each year, and obviously it's ICT or IT and IT related information plus audiovisual solutions. So it covers that. Now there are 6 areas in the SEWP V category that covers the task orders: information technology and networking, software and cloud, mobility and communications, supporting technology, AV conferencing, and services. I'm not going to go into the details, but these were what was on SEWP V. And then the overall information about it, the award date was 2015, 1st of May, and then it's going to finish by 30th of April 2025. So the government must award for SEWP VI before that date and actually start the contracts before that date. Estimated program ceiling value was $30 billion, but we saw that it's at least $42 billion right now obligated, and it's not finished yet. Total spending to date, as I said, $45 billion. Number of task orders, 138,380 by the end of January 2023 that I can get my hands on in terms of the data. So you can see that a lot of task orders, obviously some of them are small and some of them are large, depending on the type of the service. And then this is also good. Average bids submitted per task order, 4. So there's not much competition. You can see that on the average, only 4 companies competed against each other on these. Let's look at the numbers. Committed funding per year. You can see that it's a very healthy contract. It's going up each and every year, starting from fiscal year 18 until fiscal year 23. And then the top 5 agencies that are the buyers. As I said, there are 30, 40 agencies or more, perhaps, if you count the larger sub-agencies that are using the SEWP program, but these are the main top 5. Veterans Affairs and Defense, DoD, are the top 5 with approximately $5.5 billion on SEWP V. Then the Air Force, Navy, and Justice are approximately the same, around $2 billion obligated or spent on these. Okay. And this is the list of the 10 top contractors on SEWP V. If you need more information about the top contractors or top agencies, please let me know. I can actually get back to you on that through email. Please give me an email and send it. Now, what are the top issues that make SEWP so attractive to agencies? I won't go into details of explaining why, but speed, customer service, competitive prices, enterprise-wide support, tracking and communication, supply chain risk management are the 6 key areas that all agencies are really loving SEWP VI and are using it more and more every day. And I think you can translate these into the contractors side as well. And it will give you an idea of why SEWP VI is so attractive to contractors as well. So having said that, let's start with SEWP VI and see where we stand in terms of the general details, and then we'll go into the proposal itself. So it's by NASA, but as I said, NASA is just a PMO. It's government-wide, multiple awards, UAC. Subject is information technology, communications, and audiovisual solutions and services. So hardware and software. Estimated value, so far they've set $70 billion budget, but there is also talk about having an open ceiling on this, like Oasis. It started with a specific amount, but Oasis Plus recently, they announced that it has an open ceiling. So we'll have to see once the full RFP drops. But at least $70 billion. Now, each contractor will get a contract for $20 billion. So if you're awarded, you can go up to $20 billion on your contract. It has both the unrestricted and small business set asides. So full and open small business. Number of awards, no limit. This is important. So there is no competition between you and the other companies in the award process. As long as you satisfy the requirements, you are awarded. So this is really good. No competition. Contract duration, 10 years, 5-year base, and 5-year option. So these are the main highlights of SEWP VI.
Okay, so the draft RFP for SEWP VI was issued in June 30th, 2023. It was originally assumed that the full RFP would drop in the second quarter of fiscal year 2024. That would be, by the end of March. But so far, it seems that it's going to be towards the end of third quarter, which would be May or June of 2024. The proposal due date is 60 days after the RFP is issued, so you will have 2 months to work on it. But do consider the fact that there are a lot of preparations that you have to do before that. So don't wait for it to drop and then start. You won't make it. The award date was supposed to be October 2024, but I'm sure that it will be slipping due to the full RFP not being issued on time. The POP should begin May 1st, 2025, because that's when the previous SEWP V contracts will end. So I hope that they will stay on schedule for that.
Okay. Now, this gives you an idea of the timings. Draft RFP in 2023, the full RFP in 2024, award and POP in 2025. POP starts in May 1st, 2025. Okay, what are the differences? Some of the main differences between SEWP V and SEWP VI so far is that SEWP V was only firm fixed price orders, whereas in SEWP VI, you have firm fixed price, time and material, labor hours, fixed price award fee, and all the others. SEWP V services limited to product base, but here we have services and professional services at the master contract level. Classification was not standardized, and services within scope at the order level. These were for SEWP V. But in SEWP VI, we have 2 new service categories added. The scope of category A, and I'll explain that in a minute, expanded and was clarified. And the UN Standard Products and Services Code was actually used. So UNSPSC is now used for classification. Now, we have 3 different categories in SEWP VI. So category A is Information Technology, Communication, Audiovisual Solutions, ITC and AV. So it's essentially hardware and the necessary software needed for that. It's open to both small business as well as unrestricted. Category B is Enterprise ITC AV Service Solutions. So this is service solutions. It's again open to both small business and unrestricted. And category C is the same as B, ITC and AV program level services. This is at program level, but it's services. So it's not hardware, it's services, but it is only open to small businesses. Now, you can see that on the third column, I have type of award. For A and B, it's unrestricted and small business, but for C, category C, there are 2 groups, group C1 and C2. C1 will be a small business set aside, the usual small business set aside, but C2 is for companies, small businesses who are at the verge of graduating into large businesses. So they've actually put these 2 distinctions for category C. But essentially, category C is for small businesses who are small right now. But for A and B, you can be either small business or large. Either works. Okay, so what are the categories specifications? So category A is 541512 NAICS code, IT solutions, product information computer technology, ICT, and audiovisual. It has 6 main areas: IT computer systems, storage devices, compute facilities, networking technology, mobility and communication, software and cloud technology, supporting technology, security technology, and then AV equipment and accessories, and then product-based services. So these are the main categories under category A, which is essentially hardware and solutions. For category B, 541512, it's essentially services. So I've listed all the different types, 11 different types: enterprise-wide network services, IT managed services, enterprise-wide innovation services, and so on. So these are for category B. And then category C is fairly similar, a little bit different towards the end. We have in-scope training and things like that, but it's essentially IT services, information communication technology, ICT, and audiovisual services at program level. So these are the three different categories. Okay, having said that, now we reached the main part of the proposal, the main part of the webinar, which is the proposal requirements and how we should go after it and the process and everything. So let's look at the volumes first. Volume 1 is offer volume. It has 3 different sections: administrative documents, the usual, section K, the 1449, and others that you have to fill out. Certifications, ISO 9001, which is required for all offers. If you don't have it, you will be disqualified. I'll get to that because there's an easy way of getting over that. Excuse me. And then CMMI level 2 or more or higher for category B and C. So if for category A, you just need the ISO 9001, but for category B and C, you need the ISO plus CMMI level 2 or higher. And then we get to mandatory experience. Don't overlook this. This is the most important part because it's a pass-fail. If you don't have it, you'll be put aside. So 3 sections, and I'm going to go into details of each in the next slides, but these are offer volume 1. So volume 2, past performance volume, has 2 sections: past performance descriptions, up to 3 contracts, and then PPQs that you have to get filled out by your clients. And then volume 3 is management or technical approach volume. Has 2 subfactors: subfactor A, technical approach; subfactor B, management approach. So this is the proposal. I'm going to go into details of each of these as we go along, but I wanted to give you a overall view of what the different parts are. So let's start with volume 1. Remember that we had 3 volumes here: offer volume, past performance volume, and management technical approach volume. We are going to go into each of these now and discuss each of them. So volume 1, offer volume. Okay, so it has 3 sections: the administrative documents, certifications, and the mandatory experience. Administrative documents I'm not going to go into. It's the usual that you prepare for any other proposal, any other offer that you provide to the government. In terms of certifications, as I said, ISO 9001 is mandatory for all offers. It can be either the 9001 to 2008 or 2050. Either is acceptable. And you have to provide a certification of conformity or conformance for that to prove it. For CMMI level 2 or higher, that's mandatory for B and C. And it must be active at the time proposals are due. Now, the important thing here, maybe you don't have it, don't lose faith. Okay, so if you can provide proof that you have applied for the certification, that's good enough. As far as the proposal is concerned, if you can provide proof that you have actually applied for it and you are in the process, that's acceptable. So if you don't have an ISO 9001 or a CMMI, just go through the process, apply for it right now before the RFP drops and before the submission, and then get the proof that you have actually done that and submit that with your proposal. If that's the case, that's acceptable. So you pass this part. Then we get to the mandatory experience, which is again pass-fail, and it's different for each category. So I'm going to go into each of them separately. So we are discussing mandatory experience under volume 1, offer volume. This is for category A. Provide an Excel sheet with at least 2,000 CLINs for each of the following mandatory sub-areas. So you have to reach out to your providers to your OEMs or whatever, and then get 2,000 CLINs for each of these. Maybe one OEM or provider will give you all the 2,000. Maybe you have to reach out to different companies, but you have to have 2,000 CLINs under each of these: IT computer systems, storage devices, and compute facilities, networking technology, mobility communication, software and cloud technology, supporting technologies, security technology, AV equipment and accessories, product-based services. So multiply that by 2,000, that's 12,000 CLINs. And the government is going to look at those, make sure that they are in place. So this is a pass-fail. You want to get that. And that's one of the reasons you need to start right now, not wait until the full RFP drops, because this is a huge load of work to get, these 12,000 CLINs prepared, ready, checked, reviewed, all the processes that usually are in place for such information. So that's for category A. Now for category B, it's a little bit different because obviously it's not, it's services, it's not solutions, it's not hardware. So if you're a large business, you must provide a minimum of 4 projects or contracts that cover the mandatory experience sub-areas. And I'm going to show you what those mandatory experience sub-areas are in the next slide. So 4 contracts that show that you actually cover those mandatory experience sub-areas. Each project, each contract must have a minimum total value of $30 million or higher. So the project must be over $30 million, and you need 4 of those. That's a minimum to show that you cover the mandatory experience sub-areas. If you're a small business, you need to cover 3 contracts. And then the value of the contract must be over $5 million or higher. This was a little bit confusing, but in the October 18th Industry Day, they actually corrected this. So 30 million is for large businesses, 5 million is for small businesses. Now, these contracts can be prime or subcontracts. They can be federal or commercial. So if you've done commercial work, that's fine. And state and local is considered commercial as far as the government, federal government is concerned. So you can use federal contracts, you can use state and local government contracts, and you can use purely commercial contracts. And then just remember, if you're using a subcontract, the value of the work performed must come from the subcontractor itself. So you can't say, hey, I did this work for example, Apple, and Apple was doing it towards the government. The value of the contract by Apple was $20 million, but I only did $100,000. Your contract value is $100,000, not that $20 million that Apple did. So make sure that you have the correct numbers there. Projects from one more important thing. Projects from subcontractors, affiliates, and predecessor companies are not acceptable. So you cannot bring in a partner. That's the thing about SEWP VI as a whole. You can have obviously subcontractors if you want, but in terms of getting scores or getting their contracts used in your proposal, you cannot do that. So subcontractors and partnering are out as far as boosting your chances of getting a contract under SEWP VI. Moving forward, so I said I will show you what the mandatory experience sub-areas are. So these are the mandatory experience sub-areas under category B. I've listed them. So remember here, I said for large businesses, you need to have 4 projects that cover the mandatory experience. I didn't mean that you have to have 4 projects that cover all these 10. It means that 4 of these, any 4 of these must be covered in your contracts. Any 4 of these 10 must be covered. And for small business, any 3 of these must be covered. That's why you need 3 contracts. Okay. Moving forward, category C. Now, category C, you must provide a minimum of 3 projects or contracts that cover the mandatory experience sub-areas. And I will list them in the next slide. If you're a hub zone, STVOSB, or a EDWOSB, a minimum of 2 contracts is enough. So 3 contracts for all small businesses, 2 for hub zones, STVOSBs, and EDWOSBs. Each project must have a minimum total value of $2 million or higher. Okay. And then contracts can be prime or sub. If using a subcontract, the value, again, must come from you. And again, you cannot use subcontracted projects. So subcontractors, affiliates, and predecessor companies are not acceptable. So these are for category C, and the listing for the areas that you need to cover. For small business, 3 of these. For those specific small businesses like hub zone and those, 2 of these. So provide contracts that show that you actually cover these areas. So this is mandatory experience for volume 1 offer volume, and it's pass fail. Okay, so they're not going to grade you at how well you did this or what the value was. As long as above that value, minimum value that I've mentioned, that's good enough. This is a pass fail. Okay, let's move to volume 2 then. Volume 2, past performance. So one of the things that you have to provide information from you, from the offerer. Provide up to 3 past performed projects. They don't need to be the same ones that you provided in volume 1. So 3 good past performed projects. Contracts must have been completed or ongoing within the past 3 years from the proposal due date, not release date, due date. So assuming that they actually drop it on February 2024, and they say, okay, end of April is the due date. So you have to go back 3 years, and anything that was completed after 21, April of 21, end of April 21 is good. If it's an ongoing, that's fine. So that's acceptable. Cannot use a subcontractor's past performance again. So in the experience area, you could not use subcontractors. In the past performance area, you cannot use subcontractors. So they must come from you. Obviously, this does not mean JVs. If you're a JV, you can use any JV member's past performance. Now, there are some, these are general requirements. There are some requirements as far as category A are concerned. So hardware. For small businesses, you have to get moderate relevance if you want to be acceptable. And moderate relevance means that it has to have a similar scope contract, and then annual value of at least $500K. Remember, this is annual value. So if the value of the contract is $5 million and it's for 10 years, that's acceptable. But if it's a $5 million for 12 years, then it will be the annual value when you divide it will be less than $500K. So the annual value of the 3 projects that you're going to provide as past performance must be above $500K. And then it has to have similar scope. And then similar scope, I will explain what it is. But so that's the requirement. If it's a large business, it has to have similar scope, but the annual value must be at least $2.5 million. So similar scope means those 6 areas that I've listed. So past performance citations must include the following representative areas. So if you have similar scope, it means that it has to fall into one of these. If you have that, so if you have a similar scope and you're above annual value of $500K for small business or $2.5 million for large business, you get a moderate relevance. And that's all you need. You don't need to have very good or anything like that. Moderate is good enough because this is, again, pass, fail. You don't get any, score on it. So if you get a moderate relevance, that's good. You're good to go. Now, for category B, the value, the same thing. So similar scope contracts, annual value must be at least 1 million for small business. So services, if it's a services contract category that you want to go, it's $1 million. And then for small business and $2.5 million for large business. And to show that it has a similar scope, again, these are the 10 areas that your past performance must include to show that it has similar scope. It doesn't mean that it has to cover all of them. It means that, say you did an IT managed services and it was over $2.5 million. That's good. That can be acceptable as past performance. Okay, category C, remember it was for small business only. So similar scope, annual value of 500K, and those are the areas to prove the similar scope. So these are the requirements for past performance for the 3 different categories. Now, there is a questionnaire that you also have to get filled out. So for each reference contract in the previous section, a PPQ must be filled by the contracting officer or owner. Owner meaning that perhaps you're providing a past performance that is from a commercial contractor or you were a subcontractor. So they fill this up to be sent directly to the subcontracting office. So it shouldn't be sent back to you to be included in the proposal. It should be sent directly to the subcontracting officer. And the date that they should arrive is the same as the closing date for the RFP. What we have to do in the proposal is that we have to provide a list of people who will be replying back to the questionnaires, so the government does know who will be sending them the PPQs. Okay, so that was volume 2. Let's go into volume 3, mission suitability. This is called technical and management approach, and in other places in the RFP, it's called mission suitability. Either way, volume 3. This is the part that actually has some writing, in it. The other parts, as you saw, they don't have any writings. You just have to prove, for example, that your contract SAO covered one of those mandatory areas. So you have to cite different sections of the contract and provide it. Of course, for past performance, you have to prepare a write-up. It's 2-3 pages. But, I mean, there's no technical writing involved in volumes 1 and 2. Now, in volume 3, mission suitability, there are 2 subfactors. Subfactor A, technical approach, and subfactor B, management approach. This is where your writing skills should shine, because this is the only place that the better you write, the better, the more concise, to the point, the higher the score you get, and you want to pass their expectations, and I'll get to that. But so writing here is important. Let's start with subfactor A, technical approach. So what it is, this is a summary description that addresses each of the SAO scope category descriptions, mandatory technical sub-areas, and propose additional technical sub-areas. Now, these are in the SAO, both for the category A as well as category B and C. So essentially, you're supposed to address each of these. The summary should detail the scalability and extensibility of the offer's capabilities that demonstrate the offer's ability to deliver the full range of IT solutions for proposed category, and their specific category requirements that I will show in the other. So essentially, let's go into the details of what subfactor A technical approach should cover. So here are the requirements as far as category A is concerned, hardware solutions. So for each mandatory sub-area, the offeror must provide a list identifying the providers for which the offeror is an approved reseller. So list of our OEMs and the providers and everything. Provide the full suite of products and services for each identified provider for that mandatory sub-area. So you have to have also must include a letter of authorization for each mandatory sub-area provided. So as I said, this is the reason you have to start early before the full RFP drops is that you have a lot of communication to do, and getting these letters of authorization, getting those claims, getting the list of equipment and all that. If you're an OEM yourself, then the POC can be from within your organization. Otherwise, your OEM, the company that is your OEM, should provide that letter of authorization. And then you have to describe what relationship you have with them. Now, large businesses must provide technology solutions for all 6 technical sub-areas consisting of a minimum of 2,000 clients, which comes to 12,000. If you go into the SAO, you will see that there are some mandatory areas, sub-areas, and there are non-mandatory sub-areas. For the mandatory sub-areas, you have to provide those claims, but all of them. But for the non-mandatory sub-areas, technical sub-areas, you have to provide at least 50%. So that's for large business. Now, for small business, for the mandatory sub-areas, 2,000 claims, but only for 3 of them, not the 6 technical sub-areas, for 3 sub-areas. So that's 6,000 claims for small businesses. And then 25% of the non-mandatory technical sub-areas you have to cover. So 6,000 CLINs or 3 technical sub-areas, mandatory sub-areas, and then 25% of the non-mandatory technical sub-areas. And then you must describe your IT-based solution services, how the proposed architecture features provide technical. So it's a write-up, technology leadership in allowing for the next generation of technology. So that was category A. Now, category B specific requirements. For each mandatory sub-area, the offeror must provide a list, identify the providers for which the offeror is an approved reseller, and provide the full suite of products. So if you're providing services such as software and things like that, you have to actually provide the names and the list of resellers and letters of authorization. And if you're an OEM yourself, again, somebody from within your organization can actually provide it. And then you have to provide the description of a relationship between you and the provider. There are no specific requirements for category C under this. Okay, moving forward, let's look at subfactor B now. So that was subfactor A, technical approach. Subfactor B is management approach. It has 4 different areas: commitment to products and service diversity, commitment to supply chain management, commitment to sustainability, and program management. Okay, let's go into details of what these should cover. So the first subfactor, commitment to product and service diversity, describe your teaming relationship with other vendors, manufacturers, and service providers. Describe your corporate policies and resources that will affect the addition of new solution providers for the purpose of enhancing the technology and services available to the government, and then provide information concerning how these policies will allow the continued and increased availability and competitiveness through the life of the contract. So you have to write towards these under the commitment to product and service diversity. Under the second one, commitment to supply chain management, you have to provide information related to how the offeror is participating in SCRM activities or is kept abreast of key SCRM practices. Explain the corporate policies and procedures in place to reduce the risk of counterfeiting, tainting, product substitution, and other risks related to SCRM, and so on. So you can see this is essentially towards supply chain management, and you have to write towards that. Now, for category A, you have to explain the supply of products and corporate risk associated with SCRM. For category B and C, describe ancillary products required for task risk associated with SCRM. So now moving to the third one, commitment to sustainability. This is a new wave that is hitting the government. So in every RFP, there are, asking towards sustainability. So provide detail of sustainability management policy and management system to control, and at the minimum address the following, and there are 7 different questions that you have to actually cover each of them, talk towards them in the proper way. And the fourth and last one, program management. Describe your management approach, responding point to point to the below. Strategy for managing customer requests for TO proposals, task orders, and contract and task order administration. How you will address the broad scope of SEWP contract offerings. How you'll support both CONUS and OCONUS requests, because there might be. How your management chain of command will function at each management level, and where and what will be the principal support office and its functionality. So you have to cover all of these, perhaps provide schematics and things like that. What is your management and program capabilities in regards to IDIQ and GDIC programs? So here you have to actually go into describing the program management factor of this SEWP. So these are all writings that you need to provide. So that was essentially the 3 volumes of the proposal. Now let's look into how the selection process actually works. We'll see that as far as the government is concerned, there are 4 steps that it will take. First, they will see if you have the ISO 9001 or 2015, and if not, they'll put aside your proposal. They're not going to look at anything else. If it's CMMI, they'll also look at that, for category B and C. If you don't have that, or a statement saying that it's in process, they'll put aside your proposal. Obviously, this number 1 also covers all the administrative work, so they want to make sure that you've signed the 1449 or whatever. Now, in the second step, they want to check if you have a moderate or higher, neutral they've said, but it's essentially a joke. But you have to have a moderate or higher level of confidence as far as past performance rating is concerned. And I'll go into that. I think I covered it, but next slide will make that more clear. So if you have a moderate or higher past performance rating, you're good to go. They'll pass you to the 3rd stage. In the 3rd stage, they want to make sure that as far as the mission suitability, that volume 3, you get high confidence in both sub-factors. So remember, it has a management approach and a technical approach. You need to get high confidence in both of them to actually pass the test here. It's a pass-fail. Either you have high confidence or you don't. If you get high confidence in both, then you're passed in the 4th one. They just check for responsibility. So you're essentially done. So you can see that there's no competition. They're not going to compare you with anybody else, but they have their own norms. They want to make sure that you're above those norms. That's all they want to check. So let's look at from your perspective, from the contractor perspective, what you need to actually win on this. So you need to have an ISO 9001. You need to have a CMMI level 2 for category B and C or higher. And if you don't, you need to present documentation showing that you actually have applied for this and it's in process. If you have that, second thing you have to pass the mandatory relevant experience requirements. Remember, for category A, where those CLINs, 2,000 CLINs per sub-area. And then for categories B's and C, it was providing those contracts showing $30 million for large businesses, $5 million for small businesses, showing that you covered some of those mandatory sub-areas. If you pass that, again, a pass-fail, you get to the past performance check that they will do. You need to get a moderate on that. If you get a moderate on that, you're passed to the next step, which they will check volume 3, and you have to get a high confidence on both technical approach and management approach. So moderate on past performance, high confidence on volume 3. If you have all of these, you're awarded. They're not going to compare you with anybody else. They just want to make sure that you're moderate on past performance, high confidence on mission capability. So what does that moderate mean? Let's look at it again. Just, I put everything together here. So moderate rating for past performance, because in terms of going back to the previous one, here you can provide this, the experience with the contracts you provide or the CLINs. Here you have to have that moderate. I want to tell you what the moderate is, so there's no mistake. In terms of high confidence, you just have to write properly towards it. So this is essentially the 4th one is how well you can actually write towards these. But 2 and 3 are really important to actually provide the proper documents in the proper way. So I want to, once more discuss this moderate for past performance in this slide. So moderate for past performance has 2 sub-factors. One is size, one is relevance. So size and relevance. Size means if you're a large business, for both category A and B, the annual value must be $2.5 million for the three past performance contracts that you provide. If you're a small business, category A is 500K, category B 1 million, category C 500K. This is the annual value of the contracts that you provide for those 2 or 3 past performance contracts. Now, for relevance, for large business, category A and B, same. You need to showcase at least 4 representative areas out of those 10 or 11 areas in A and B. A was actually 6, B was 11. Out of those, you have to provide, 4. So the past performance contracts that you provide, they must cover at least 4 representative areas, both for category A and B. If you're a small business, for category A and B and C, you showcase at least 3 representative areas. So the contract, you cannot provide this construction contract. It has to be a contract towards IT, and it has to cover 3 of those areas if you're a small business. If you're a hub zone, STV, OSP, ODWSP, if you're one of these for category B and C, then you showcase only 2. You have to showcase only 2. The more you provide doesn't matter because, as I said, you just need to get a moderate rating. So, even you get a very, very good rating, doesn't matter compared to a moderate rating. So make sure that you actually pick the best contracts and use those. So that was how you actually get a moderate rating for past performance I wanted to cover. So having said that, let's now move to the win strategy that I recommend towards SEWP VI. So we understood it has 3 different volumes, what you have to provide, and we also understood, and it's important that I reiterate it, you cannot use partners to actually boost your percentage of winning, probability of win. You can, of course, have subcontractors when you actually perform the task orders, but it doesn't matter here. Here, what is important in terms of the contracts you bring to the table for experience or for past performance, all of them must come from you. Of course, having a good team is a plus when you're writing up towards management experience in the 3rd volume. But what I wanted to iterate is that don't count on using contracts from your partners towards past performance or experience. Okay, so having said that, in essence, you either have it or you don't have it. You either have those past experiences or past performances, or you don't. So because you have to provide contracts that you yourself have performed, either you have done them or not. So that's in essence, that's the first part of volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 3, obviously, you have to write well towards. Now, having said that, a few points. You can get past the barrier of ISO 9001 and CMMI, as I explained. If you don't have them, you can apply for them and provide proof that you have applied. That's good enough as far as the government is concerned. You get a pass on that. You can't use subcontractors, as I mentioned. For category A, start reaching out to your providers right now, getting the support letters and preparing those 2,000 clean documents for each sub area. I want to emphasize this more and more. You don't have time, so you really need to get those, because it's not just getting those. You have to review them. You have to, multiple reviews, make sure that they're formatted properly, all that. A lot of work needs to be done on those CLINs. For category B, you need at least 4 projects over $30 million, or 3 over $5 million if you're a small business, 2 for specific set-asides, as I mentioned, to showcase your experience. So start looking for those in your archives, making sure that you have them. They have to, and then category C, you need at least 3 projects over $2 million, 2 instead of 3 for specific set-asides. You need 2 to 3 projects with an annual value of $2.5 million for large businesses and 1 million or 500K for small businesses to get a moderate rating for past performance. What I explained in the previous points, where towards the experience part, this is towards the past performance. So that $30 million or $5 million for small business is for that mandatory experience pass-fail. The $2.5 million for large businesses, or $1 million or $500K for small businesses, which is annual value, is for the past performance pass-fail, or to get a moderate rating. And then volume 3, mission suitability, is where your writing skills might be needed to showcase your capabilities. So start preparing for that volume now. It needs a lot of work because obviously they're not going to compare you with others, but they have high expectations on that. So you want to make sure that the writing is concise, you are within the page limits, and you're writing towards what they are looking for. Okay, so in form, in terms of the proposal that you prepare, if you have the requirements, then the main threat is not preparing your proposal in the required format in compliance with the requirements. For example, how you actually prove that you have the different sub areas covered. You have to, make sure that that is done properly per the format that they have requested in the RFP. So a compliance review is of utmost importance. Really pay attention to details in the form and format, as well as the the content that you're understanding it properly and you're writing towards it properly. And then my suggestion is that you do a go, no go, an initial go, no go, to ensure that your energy, time, and resources are not spent on something that is not viable opportunity. I mean, if you don't have those contracts, if you're a large business and you don't have 4 contracts with $30 million, usually you should have, but I mean, if you don't, then there's no way that you should proceed. Or maybe you're a small business, but all your contracts are subcontractors, subcontract projects. Then you should consider the value of your subcontracts to make sure that you can use those. And as I said, forget about bringing in partners. Volume 3 depends on your writing skills and how well you can showcase yourself. But volume 1 and 2 are based on concrete facts that you either have or don't have, with the exception of ISO that you can get and things like that. Okay, so that was the win strategy that I wanted to discuss. Now, how we can help, and we're short of time. I wanted to reach a point that I can answer some questions. So a little bit about our company, just to make sure that it's available. We had 6 wins on SEWP 5, 4 small businesses and 2 large. And we've been in business for more than a decade, 82% win rate overall. One of the things that we usually do is right in the beginning, we do a go, no go for our clients. We don't want to waste their money, their resources, and this way our win rate stays high as well. So if we don't see a good chance for them to win, we tell them right in the beginning so they don't proceed. And we have expertise in self-scoring. That's our main expertise as well. For example, we did 105 contracts under Oasis Plus, which was submitted a few weeks ago for 105 different contractors, clients. So we've done a lot of work in these types of proposals, and you can see our win rate in 2022, 2022, and others. Okay, now what do we offer for SEWP VI? We provide free consultation, and I will give you the next slide. You will see in the next few slides the number to call. My colleague set up a free consultation. We can come online and discuss it with you. We provide full proposal development. We provide a dedicated proposal team for you. We provide the support for all volumes, cradle to grave, full and multiple reviews, because compliance is really important in these types of projects. And then reviewing services, in case you provide, you have your in-house team, many companies have. So once you prepare your proposal, we do a full proposal review for you, usually 2 rounds, and we provide strategy consultation as well. So these are the services specific to SEWP VI that we provide. In terms of overall services that GDI Consulting provides, we have 4 different divisions: proposal development, including eligibility score assessment, full proposal development, reviews, staff augmentation. Then we have our capture management division. We have dedicated capture management, sourcing, and qualification. We call them strategic capture, even starting 2-3 years before, all the way to tactical capture, perhaps 6 months or something like that, prior to the full RFP. Support services like competitive intelligence, black hat exercises, price to win, and finally training in all areas, proposal development, capture management. So these are the services we provide to our clients. These are my colleagues and mine contact info in case you want to contact us for technical inquiries. Please contact me. I'm VP Capture at GDIC, and for consulting or sales inquiries, please contact my colleague, Maroon Freedy. You have the emails and the phone numbers.
Okay, we've reached the Q&A session, and as usual, I'm really behind. I'll answer some questions. I apologize. As usual, I've talked too much, so I'll answer some questions and then respond to the rest of the questions through email. So let's start quickly. First question, John asks, if my manufacturer has ISO 9001, is that enough? No, you, the offerer, must have it. So that's not enough. Ashley says, I'm confused as to whether we need to provide 3 projects for each of the mandatory areas, which means 3 times 10 for category B, equaling 30 contracts. Is this correct? No. So if you're a small business, you need to provide 1 contract each for 3 out of the 10 mandatory experience areas for category B. So the total is 3 contracts, not 30 contracts. This is the same for other types. So if you're a large business, you're not supposed to provide 40 contracts, for example. Just 4, covering 4 out of the 10 mandatory areas. But remember, this is important. You can't use the same contract for 2 mandatory areas. Sometimes, you have contracts that, projects that cover multiple mandatory areas. You cannot use that. So it's 1 contract per mandatory area. Next question, a question from June. How do we incorporate shipping prices into the CLINs? Okay, so you don't include them into each CLIN. Just explain how you calculate it separately on that same Excel sheet. That's enough. This is from the Q&A, referring to that. Steve asks, I heard that you can't use the same OEM for different mandatory sub areas. Is this true? Good question. Yes. The same OEM can be used for only one of the mandatory technical areas, but you can use them for the non-mandatory areas multiple times if you want. Paul says, how many government users are using SEWP? Is it widely used? Well, the government has said that there are currently 35,000 government users using SEWP, so that's huge. And they expect this to increase with SEWP VI. Next question, a question from Lisa. There have been many cases recently that the contracting office did not include pricing in the IDIQ bidding stage, and they were protests and they had to redo everything. Could this happen to SEWP? This is a concern that many have. That's correct. NASA has included a FAR that allows them to actually bid the requirements at the IDIQ level without pricing competition. So nobody can protest against that or they will lose. However, note that due to the size of this contract, we should expect some sort of a delay due to possible protests. It's a huge contract, so you should expect protests. Let's go for one last question. Another question from Lisa. Can 8A companies participate in Category C? Yes, Category C includes 8A, Hub Zone, SDV OSP, EDW OSP, and SCB. So yes, they can participate. Okay, we are way out of time, so I apologize for being not able to respond to all your questions. I'll respond to everything by email. Thank you once again for participating in SEWP. Please communicate with me or Maroon if you want a a consultation. I'm ready to answer any other questions that you might have on that call. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in our future webinars as well.